We're going to get down to the nuts and bolts in this one. I'm going to tell you guys now, about 36 hours ago, the idea for this video wasn't even around. I mean, it hadn't popped up. I was induced to come up with this video through a friend and a moderator right here on Archaix. And she has a friend dear to her, one of those friends that she's had for decades, that's going through something. So she was asking my personal opinion on what I would do if I was in her shoes. So in answering that question, in the reaction that she had to hearing what my solution was so profound to her that it became almost an emotional affair. So I realized at that moment that people need to hear this, and that YouTube and other platforms are absolutely packed with all kinds of syllabuses and techniques and formulas and law of attraction theories and all that. But I noticed that there's nobody actually producing evidence of applications. So it's just like one of the major tenets of this channel. I don't want to tell you the truth. I want to show it to you. And the best way to show people many fundamentals about our reality, especially from the Archaix perspective, is to show you through arithmetic, mathematics, geometry, because these things break down materials to their core fundamentals, and we realize, damn, things really are just programmed. So that's what we're going to do today, but we're going to do it by examples, not theory. I'm going to explain exactly how you would deal with your situation once you enlighten me in the chat today as to what your situation is. Yeah, sometimes you got to humble yourself. Sometimes you just got to, hey, you throw caution to the wind. And in all the only ones we can possibly entertain are all capitals. All capital letters, we know that this is a question for me. Creating our reality. I've explained in prior videos that it is an absolute must that you understand that one thing, you're not creating anything. You're not doing anything. And for those of you who believe that God is doing things for you, I'm going to tell you now that all the hundreds of millions of prayers in the world that have prayed to change the conditions of individuals who are suffering, those same situations for which those individuals are suffering still continue. So if the prayer of desperation only admits a situation for what it is and thus continues it, then we need to look at this from a different perspective. We need to understand what's really happening here. So if we live in the photo negative of a real reality, in the anti-arithmetic of a true mathematical construct, if we're on the outside looking in, then that means everything that's going on here that we think is moving in a forward linear fashion is actually moving backwards. It means that we're actually interpreting data from the opposite end of the spectrum from which we're supposed to be interpreting it. It might have something to do with the fact that in this reality, it seems that the greatest truths are always perpetuated through fictions. So, if we were to apply this model of using fiction to promote fact, instead of believing something was factual, which is not, perhaps we may be able to understand this dilemma that we're in. And once we understand this dilemma that we're in, we'll be able to utilize it to our advantage. We have to understand that this is a dynamic that is very difficult for people to wrap their minds around. That we're on the outside looking in, that we are not even in a real universe that goes by real laws. And because everything is in the reverse, we are actually the mirror image of a real reality. And because of that, everything that we do here and promote as real, we find later is false. But the very fictions that we accept as true become our reality and become true to us. So we have this mirror effect. I call it the divine mirror. And it's a beautiful thing. So when I was asked by a friend of mine that, hey, I have a friend who's suffering. I've been knowing her for decades, and she has cancer. And it's metastasizing. In my soul, when I am listening to her tell me this, I cringe. Not because of anything affecting me, but I know that I am far beyond the material in my understanding. And when I hear another soul tell me what the situation is that another soul is going through, I cringe, because just explaining that to me reinforces the condition. Now, so I attempted to break, I didn't attempt, I actually did. I broke it down to her and I explained that in order to change what is to what we want to be, we have to live out the fiction to promote the fact. If Jason, and I don't, but if Jason had cancer, and even if I was told by somebody in the medical profession that it was metastasizing and that it was spreading, even if they gave me a date, I don't know, 10 years ago, I may have accepted that programming into my own substrate. And by doing that, the arithmetic of those predictions would have been melded into the arithmetic of my life. And there would be periods in the future where that arithmetic would coalesce. And on one of those nodes, what was predicted would then come true. I'm not that person anymore. Now I understand when I hear things, I can take them for what they are. They're fictions. No one's telling me a core fact. So when I hear these fictions that are supposed to pertain to me, I can instantly, it's like spiritual alchemy, I can instantly take that information and I can think of a future date. If I had cancer, I would think of a future date where I was enjoying things that I like to do, that I can do because I don't have cancer, surrounded by people who also know that we're enjoying this activity right now in the future because I don't have cancer, because I'm healthy. I would plan for events that have not yet happened because these are fictions. And when I project that fictive energy into reality, there is something that reciprocates. Because in this reality, which is all based off a lie, remember, the God of this world is not the oversoul. The oversoul is the God of all worlds. But this world was hijacked. This world, the God of this world, is an arch deceiver. The architecture of his personality is seen in the predator versus prey ecosphere that we live in. Violence is the signature of the God of this world. It's steeped in materialism. But we have a benefactor that has allowed for the situation of using the very rules of the arch deceiver against him. From the divine immortal soul who is trapped in this construct is now able to use the tool of fiction, which is a lie, to create a truth. It is just the opposite of what we're trained to believe, that we are physical beings and that imagination and daydreaming and prophecy and all these things are fictions. It's just the opposite. It's the very fictions that we create because we are co-creators. When we believe in the very fictions that we write for ourselves, they become our reality. And one reason for this is because the informed field of the individual writes its own existence through a relationship with the neutral field of the simulacrum, which is an extension of the oversoul. It's not penetrable by this arch deceiver, by whatever it is, Archaix, the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, God, Satan, whatever you want to call it. It's a force that promotes the more visceral, the more base traits and desires. but it cannot affect the highly individualized soul who refuses to succumb to the material interpretations of reality and instead uses empathy, intuition, and imagination to build their own world. This highly individualized person doesn't have to be an adept. It doesn't have to be someone who is steeped in Eastern mysticism and somebody who is well read, somebody who's read 1,300 nonfiction reference books. This isn't the type of individual the simulacrum responds to. The neutral field of the simulacrum responds to any informed field that enters a relationship with it. And what I mean is the highly individualized soul, you and I, trapped and immersed in this continuum. If we admit that we can't do something by our own power, then that means we can accomplish things through something that is lending that power to us. That's a relationship. And the individual who thinks that they do all things unto themselves is an island, and they have completely sequestered themselves away from all spiritual help because they think that they can do it. That's not a relationship. Anybody who would neutralize themselves with desperation and completely rely on God to do for them will never receive what God can do for them because they didn't enter the relationship. A relationship means that both parties have a responsibility. When you enter into that dynamic, the highly individualized soul can freely admit that, one, I have no idea how this is going to come to pass. At the same time admitting that it doesn't even matter. Because if the end of anything that you set in motion is secure, then every single step leading up to that is secure as well. A relationship requires one thing that you're not hearing about from all these formulas and all these theories about law of attraction and all that. This relationship requires trust. This item, this integral part of a relationship between the individual soul and the oversoul. This trust factor, this has been hijacked by religionists and called faith. But the connotation that's attached to faith is that you can believe that God will do it all and you don't have to do anything. That right there is the poison of religiosity. That's the interpretation from the Judeo-Christian idea of faith. Your faith has made thee whole. Remember, trust is what's absolutely required in any healthy relationship. Whatever we experience in the micro right here among us, in our interrelationships and interpersonal relationships with other people, this is the exact same thing that is required of the construct itself. The individual souls that move through life, that think that they can do things unto themselves, will continue to think that they can fight these fights themselves. And they will die lonely, and they will turn around and be recycled back into the construct to try again. Because this entire experience is all about the maturing of immortal beings who are passing through a construct, and you've got many chances. The oversoul is not going to throw you in a flaming pit for eternity because you made some mistakes. It's going to recycle you back, and you're the prodigal son. You just might have to take more trips than the average soul, but you're still going to come back after you realize basically that the oversoul is correct in all its assessments and that only you rebelled because you wanted more, thought you could do more. What's absolutely necessary for somebody who is suffering something right now, like cancer, is to imagine a life without cancer. Because the human body can produce through peptides every single thing the human body requires in minerals and in nutrition and in a filtration system that will escort out of the human body the things that do not belong inside of it. I am not telling you something that is theoretical. When I was in prison, I watched it happen. Did not happen to me. I observed it, and in prior videos, I've even shared what I saw. There is nothing in this world that can explain outside the context of what I'm telling you in this video for what I saw when I was in prison. When the medical wings in the institution wouldn't even take care of some prisoners that had terminal illnesses. They were left to die. And yet they refused that fate. And they sweated that stuff right out of their body. And they stank to high hell. And they soiled their sheets. And they drank probably 20 bottles of water. And they flushed the stuff out of their system. And they entered a contract with the oversoul. It doesn't matter if some of them were Muslim. It doesn't matter if some of them were Catholic, Christian. They believed that the oversoul, in whatever way they dressed that oversoul, was willing to help them. So they took the necessary steps to do what they could in a prison cell. And that was to quit eating and only drink water, and to read their Bible or read their Quran, and then stop reading their Bible and reading their Quran when they felt that they had done enough. And then they put the rest on the oversoul. And I watched it happen. I smelled it happen. Yeah, it's disgusting. But I watched a man sweat TB out all night long with the shivers and the shakes. Yellow soiled pus all in his sheets, and his buddies were cleaning him all night, and he stank to high heaven. But he didn't have tuberculosis after that. So these are just a couple stories, guys. Texas prison system is full of stories like this. It's when people are at the bottom. They've fallen as far down as they can go in life. There's nowhere else to look but up. And then the answers come to them. They've been fighting the fight alone their entire life, when all they had to do was ask for help and then take the initiative to move in that direction. If I had cancer, I would be planning for events in the future. Not just planning, but true plans require follow through. Yeah, I would go ahead and reserve that. I would book somewhere for a vacation 10 months from now. I would reserve that. I'd go ahead and pay up front. I would start looking on the internet for other things in that area that I could do for the 2 weeks that I planned to stay there. Yeah, I would make those plans and then dismiss them, record them, put them in a Microsoft Word file, whatever, put them aside. Put them aside. The more you dwell on something, the more power you take from it. This is the beauty of like create and forget. It's a method and it works. Bringing things into your existence almost requires you to mentally create that image, project it out, feel the feelings of having it, also express gratitude for the oversoul that it was given to you, and then just forget it. Move on about your life. Because if you dwell on something, all you do is empower its continuance. Remember, the prayer of desperation continues, well, it admits a situation for what it is, and thus continues it. So whatever I'm diagnosed with, we can do away with all medical stuff right now. No matter what I'm diagnosed with, I am going to plan events as if that diagnosis is the fiction. I am going to create that. I am going to treat that as a non-reality. And I'm going to move forward in all things. I'm going to redo my kitchen. I'm going to do events that absolutely infer a future expectation. I'm going to build projects knowing that I will enjoy them in the future. I might make purchases knowing there's no way I can enjoy that purchase until a certain future date. I would make plans with other individuals because it will be knit into their reality tunnels too. That, hey, we're going to meet over here in Nebraska 2 years from now. Here's the cabin we're going to stay in. These are the type of things that reality requires from us. Because once we have asserted that something is true, and then we follow through on it, We have created a pattern. And one thing the simulacrum understands very well is patterning. And it will turn that pattern into a schematic of your future. And then it will give it flesh and bones and turn it into a reality, as long as you've done nothing contrary. You got to start small. I did. And I told you guys right here on YouTube what I did when I had $27 in my pocket after a motorcycle accident. I quit the oil and gas industry because it was too much on my physical body now. I was in my 40s. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to start my own company. And I needed $1,200 to do it. And I did a little ritual. I made it up. But I told you guys exactly in that video what I did. It shocked me. It even shocked me when I got paid up front, $600. And then at lunchtime, I got paid another $600, even though I hadn't even finished the job that I had got the very next day. And the exact $1,200 I needed to start my new company, Paradise Rock Gardens, it happened exactly as I had called into existence. Yeah, guys, the video's still on YouTube. I don't remember which video it is. It's one of my earlier videos. And my Archaix veterans already know, because I've done several videos on location at customers' homes. And you know, for 3 years, I was doing Paradise Rock Gardens, building koi ponds and flagstone patios and extensions and fire pits. And that's how I made my money when I left oil and gas. As a matter of fact, that's how I lived as I was building this channel. So, like I said, lead by example. But if somebody told me what my fate was, it doesn't matter what the particulars are. It doesn't matter if it's a medical diagnosis or if it's a political a prediction or even criminal justice. It does not matter. All that matters to the neutral field of the simulacrum is that you are going to live through the very experiences that you expect. So if you want to expect different experiences, you've got to project that reality and then start moving in that direction. Because when you do, the simulacrum, which it doesn't care about right or wrong, true and falsehood, good and evil, none of these things. The simulacrum is a neutral field. It's a divine mirror, and it's going to reflect back into the physical world what highly individualized souls project from the spiritual world. This is the key, because spirits don't belong in this world. We're jacked into it through the central nervous system. The only activity that a spirit can do in this world is thinking. And the only product of thinking in this world is thought. And that's what builds the entire world. This is what hundreds of billions of daily reality tunnels are constructed with. Myriads of individualized souls that are all thinking, and we are living through the thoughts of those that were before us. Some of them that are still alive, others that have been recycled back in. This is what this construct is built of. It's like cerebral interface holography with another existence, a real existence for which we don't have any contact with right now, except through empathy, intuition, and imagination. These are the links that bridge us to the real reality. We're not there. We're just connected to it. So in order to get the things that we want in life here in an artificial construct, we have to borrow the dictates of that artificiality. And that means we have to perpetuate fictions to create the facts. And this is why Jesus never told the truth in a single parable. Parables are images of truth. Not one of those parables was an actual story, something that really happened. Each one of them was an illustration of a concept. Parables are images of truth, and they're very powerful at conveying real things, but they're fictions. It's the same thing you've got to do. You got to be like Jesus. You have to call those things that are not as if they are. And the only way that you can actually succeed in doing this is if you accept that you are incapable of doing it yourself and you require help. That help comes in the form of reciprocation from the neutral field of the oversoul, the simulacrum. This is a relationship, and all relationships require trust. Try to get out of that religious mindset. Quit substituting trust with faith, because faith has attachments to it that are not necessary. What it is trust. If I was diagnosed with cancer, I would totally ignore it. I would also ignore everything in my personal life that I possibly could that even remotely admitted there was a problem. I understand that some medications are needed, but it's also very easy to do things abstractedly. You can definitely take medicines and then turn around and develop the attitude while you take them that I hate taking these because they're not necessary, and you take it. The more you do that, the simulacrum will assume that is true. You're just taking medicines even though they're not necessary. 40 days later, you're still taking the same medicines, but they're not necessary. After a while, they're not necessary becomes the reality. Everything you do must be from the perspective of what you want already being done. Because if you don't put yourself in the future and then look backwards, you'll never be able to, from the present, project what you want to experience in the future. Everything is in reverse here. If I was diagnosed with something that I didn't want to be diagnosed with, then I'm going to live my life as if that diagnosis is untrue and that somebody lied to me. That's how I'm going to live my life. I understand that there's complications in my life that have to be dealt with, and I am going to ignore them as best as I can. In anything that I am forced to do, like taking medications or something like that, I'm going to do it with the attitude that I can't stand. I can't believe I'm doing this because it's not even necessary. I can't believe I'm doing this. It's just not necessary. 15 days later, I hate taking this medication, but I got to do it because he told me to, even though I know it's not necessary. Every single act that you do with this attitude sends a signal into the I was about to say similosphere, and it was just still a good word, but you understand what I'm talking about. This holography will absorb that data, and sooner or later, the fictions that you have been broadcasting will become the facts that govern your life. This is how it's done, guys. This was for cancer and anything medically wrong with you, anything wrong with you. You have to build a future and then move in that direction with the absolute implications in your life, in all aspects of your life, that's already going to come to pass. You planning for a vacation 2 years from now at a certain geographical location, you've even invited other people to join you, and you've already researched that whole geographical area for the best restaurants and things to do as a tourist, I promise you, that's all it takes. The simulacrum is going to make sure that comes to pass. In the 2 years it takes to get you from the present to the future, though, you can be getting better and better at this and planning events beyond that 2-year threshold. We still have to play by the rules of the construct. Some of those rules are atrophy, entropy. You're going to atrophy. The human body atrophies. You're not going to stop that. We're going to grow old and we're going to die. But if it's not your time, you have great latitude to extend that time here. Another rule, like I told you guys, is the rule that everything here is based off fictions. So you use that to your advantage the same way Jesus did. Cancer is the one that was induced this whole video. a friend of a friend of mine's. So this she's listening now, and I only encourage her and others that are in the same shoes that the human body is miraculous, because it too is just an extension of the spirit, and it has the great ability to filter out things that do not belong, but it has to be influenced. DNA is fantastic, and it responds to spirit, but it has to be induced. There must be a relationship factor, and relationships are not possible without trust. And trust, when you truly trust the oversoul to provide for you, then that means that you have made a spiritual breakthrough. That spiritual breakthrough is that you finally in your life actually realize that the past is not a predicate at all to your future. The past is only a predicate to the future for the collective, and those are those who do not trust in the oversoul. The past is never a predicate for the highly individualized soul. Once you realize that an entire lifetime of guilt can be negated with a single act, once you realize that this is the type of oversoul that we have, that you can be a shitty, no good, sorry SOB your entire life, but when you spiritually hit that wall and you awaken and realize what you've done, where you are, and what your potential is, and you realize that nothing in the past can stop you from this day forward from doing what you want to do and being who you want to be. Once that finally settles in, you will understand the relationship with the simulacrum, because it's a neutral field, and from its perspective, every single moment is pregnant with possibility. But it's the individualized souls that restrict themselves from moving forward because they're attached to these chains of the past that we call guilt. When you completely sever those chains, there's nothing to stop you from moving forward. Doesn't matter what your past is. You move forward, accept that relationship with the oversoul, and when judgment day comes, that's when the details will be ironed out. But while you're in here, you're subject to a relationship with a neutral field, which is an extension of the oversoul. And it has made promises to us that we can do things, we can experience things, we can have things, we can do all this, we can affect other people, we can build spiritual relationships and material relationships. We can do all these things because we were granted the position of co-creator, which means that we have to do our part, but the oversoul will do everything else that we can't do. That's the relationship, and it requires trust, and you're not going to have that trust if you're still chained to a past. There's a lot to unpack in this, so I'm going to stick to the lowest common denominators. You're speaking from the perspective of somebody who you have a burden, and that burden is that you are basically responsible for, or you have made yourself responsible for another human that is probably incapable of taking care of themselves, and they need constant care and attention. This is now I'm doing away with your particulars about the particulars are not important here. What's important is the phenomenon, this interactive dynamic that where you are burdened because it takes a lot of time and energy to deal with what you're dealing with, especially someone who is autistic, somebody sometimes their behavior is unpredictable. I get that. I am going to answer that with the fact that the very idea that there are no answers for a problem creates the situation for which there will never be answers to that problem. You have to attack this from a different perspective. You have to put yourself in the future as an immortal soul that understands that it is timeless. And you can envision a past where things smoothed out. Things are good now because things worked out. You can never impose the particulars. The oversoul will always provide that itself. What you have to do is paint a picture of the type of life that you want. If that life includes taking care of this, then there's all kinds of other things that can happen. You may meet someone who just may need somewhere to live, and they are absolutely genius with dealing with autistic people, and it would take the burden off of you, and you would have a new contact in your life. It doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about romance. It could be any number of factors. We can't always invoke the particulars, and it's not good to, because it shows a lack of trust in the oversoul when we try to inject the answers for whatever the problem is. What we need to do is envision a future that doesn't have these problems, and let the oversoul, which is very creative, far more creative than we are, actually bring into our life all the necessary additives and changes that would smooth that out to where it's much more tolerable. This is the problem a lot of people have. They cannot move forward because they have attached their psyche to the individual particulars of a problem and not the solution. When you envision a solution, all the particulars of a problem will fade away. They will be solved. This is what the relationship is about. You're not capable, so you need to admit that. I'm not capable of figuring out how I'm going to move forward. This is driving me crazy. I'm at the point of meltdown. Whatever. You have to admit this is the way that this you have to admit you're just incapable of doing this, and then you have to envision a future where all of this is rectified. I understand it's difficult, but it can be done. It can be done, but you don't have to imagine how things come to pass. That's the business of the oversoul. You're now stepping on its aspect of the relationship. This is what it's for. You have to ascertain what kind of future do you want, and it's going to build that for you. It's going to reciprocate. And whatever these problems that are very important to you right now may fade away with solutions that are genius. Things may change in your life so dramatically and so fast that you will look back 8 months from now and think, damn, I cannot believe how perfect all this unfolded. And your life is different, and now you have free time, and now you have all the things you have to do. And this person, this autistic individual, is still in your life, but you got all this help now. So, like I said, it's not the particulars of anybody's questions about or problems that's important at all, because we have to look at the fiction. The fiction is everything's okay. Everything's fine. I'm doing good. It's now 8 months in the future. I can look back and see how fast everything changed for me. And it's like, damn, I can't even, it's hard to even remember that time when I was listening to that baldhead dude on YouTube tell me what I needed to do. And I did it. Man, I can't even remember what channel that was now, man, but he changed my life. Yeah, you'll be very, very surprised how fast things can change for you. But you got to admit that you're incapable of doing it. You got to admit that you need help, but you need to move forward despite that. It's a relationship, and you can't think about how things will change. All you have to do is basically project that change is necessary. You're tired. You're done. Giving up is the greatest way to induce change in your life. People holding on to all these different things about the past is the greatest impediment to moving forward. So that's the best way I can answer that. You're in a tough situation because it's draining your energy. I get that. I understand. But it's also something that no other person in this world can answer that for you as to how that would be rectified. All we can do is lead you to the correct method, and that is an admission that you're incapable of doing it, and a vision of the future where it's no longer a problem, and a follow through right now in reality where you're doing things in the present today that automatically infer that it's no longer a problem. That's the key. Remember, we have to act like things are the way we want them to bring them out, to bring them to come to pass. So I don't know all the particulars of your situation, but you do. And you can cogitate on this, listen to this video a few times, listen to the 8-minute instructional follow-up at the end of this video, and you can ascertain what you're going to need and how much time you're going to need to do it. That's the beauty of this construct. Once you understand these fundamentals, you don't need another human anymore. You can do it all yourself, because it's not another human that's going to help you. It's going to be the oversoul. And it's going to be through a relationship, and it's going to be at that point, and it's going to be at that threshold when you finally learn to trust. And that can be tonight. That can be tomorrow. It's whenever you hit your spiritual tipping point, when you've had enough. I want to answer this real quick. Meryl said something pretty interesting. If I'm unsure of the outcome I want, can I trust the simulacrum to pick the best outcome? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that is blind trust. And I'm going to tell you now, Meryl, that is what I do all the time. I automatically assume that what I want already exists. And I automatically assume that there is no distance between me and the things that I want in life. And I automatically assume that the oversoul wants to provide the very things that I need. So everything from point A to the want, to point B when I project it, to point C when it's reflected back of circumstances, all the little things that are in between, that's micromanagement. And that's the one thing that basically tells the oversoul that you don't trust it. If you think that you have to provide the details for a solution, then that means you don't trust the oversoul in providing the answers for that solution itself. And that's a problem, because that's a dysfunctional relationship. Yeah, good question. You're describing to me somebody who has not imagined the future that they want to participate in. It seems like you're focused. And look, don't take this as constructive criticism. What he just read to me, if that's your genuine feelings about your life, then it seems to me that you have basically been lost in the maelstrom of the circumstances of your life right now. And you're not really thinking nor preparing for a future that you want, which is all that you need to do. Like I've told other people, like I've told other people right here in this chat. I mean, think about 6 months from now, 183 days from now. Think about that. What are you going to be wearing? What are you going to be driving? Where are you going to live? What kind of people are you going to be surrounded by? What kind of life are you going to live? Are you going to be working the same job? Are you going to be in a relationship with the same person? Fill that vision up to whatever you want, and divorce yourself from any thoughts as to why it can't happen. That's artificial intelligence X. That is a problem. You need to basically create a fiction version of yourself from the perspective of who you are now, who you want to be, and all these new things and accretions in your life is a fiction. But building that fiction and then acting on it is the key here. This is what I'm totally explaining in this entire video. Build that fiction. We know that we are in a false reality. We know this construct still abides by predicates and laws and dictates and subroutines and programs, and it's governed. It's not chaos here. Everything is in proportion. We already know all about phi and pi and 5.108 and curvature equations. We understand entropy. We understand the law of diminishing returns. We understand all these different laws. Listen, this is not a place of chaos. It's only perceived to be by those who don't understand what's transpiring. If everything is the opposite of what it should be here, then you need to create the real you with the real conditions you want to experience as a fiction in your mind and project it on the future. And then you need to start moving in the direction of that fiction, and I promise you it will become a fact. You have just described the problems you're having in the immediate present. You need to imagine a future where those problems have all vanished and they've been left in the past. Divorce from a psychopath, whether this individual was a psychopath or not, it's still focusing on something that's in the past. So I bought a house with mountain views. Now you have to determine, are you willing to relocate? If so, you're going to knit that into your existence. It's going to become more prevalent in your reality that you're going to relocate if you're even entertaining it. But if this place that you got is some place that you want to stay, even though you feel right now in your present circumstances it's not affordable, then you need to imagine a future that you're still in this house. And you need to quit thinking about how it's going to get paid for. These are the things for the oversoul. Opportunities exist everywhere. Money is just as illusory as happiness. It can be invoked in an instant through conditions, but you've got to take initiative. This place, if your heart and soul is in living here, then it doesn't cost the oversoul anything to make that a reality for you. If you truly understand that, then you could have a relationship with the oversoul, which is based on trust. But if you fear that there are conditions in your past that will preclude you from enjoying this in the future, then those conditions from the past will come back and haunt you, and they will prevent that future from unfolding. We write our own destinies all the time. And this is the problem that you're in right now. You need to make a decision. Don't think about possibilities. If you create for yourself two different futures, you're not going to be the master of either one. So you need to go ahead and build that mental image of what you want to experience in the future. And then you need to time travel through imagination to that future event where you still possess the things that you want. And when you look back into the past by virtue of imagination, you're thankful that everything came about so that you could afford that and keep it and enjoy it. This is the true method of the co-creator. Not to worry about conditions you can't change, but to be thankful that the oversoul has the power to change all conditions so you don't have to worry about them. We have to look at the divine mirror as something that reflects back as our future, the very things that we project. Because if you don't project that hope, you don't project that gratitude, you don't project that mental image of you possessing the thing that you want, then the simulacrum isn't going to reflect that back as circumstance. If you send mixed signals will be returned upon you. But they won't be received as signals because you're a broadcaster. What's going to happen is the external world around you will change for the worse because you sent mixed signals. And now you will see the things because the energy was focused on your house. Now your house may be taken from you. Energy was focused on a psychopathic ex-husband or whatever, then there may be some future complications with this individual you're not foreseeing right now because he's on your mind. If he's incarcerated, if he's locked up and you're still dwelling upon him, this can be a problem because it can introduce others that are on the same vibration and frequency as he is. This is a reactive medium and it's going to react to the frequencies that you broadcast. So you have to be careful when you say and accept things as true, such as, I have a psychopath husband. Please don't ever assume that he's stalking you. You understand? You cannot accept these as present conditions or they will continue that way. Remember, if the prayer of desperation admits a situation for what it is and thus continues it, then by that model, anything that we fear, we bring upon us. Fear is the opposite of trust. It shows there is no relationship. Therefore, you as being an immortal being able to create conditions are now creating the very negative conditions you fear. Yeah, it's that simple, guys. I know it doesn't feel simple when you're listening to it, but it truly is a super simple concept once you've wrapped your mind all the way around it. There's only two forces in this world, fear and trust. Trust is based off love. I've gone into other videos on love, but this is the neutral field of the simulacrum, which is an extension of the oversoul. It has to be neutral inside this construct for the simple fact as this is the property of the God of this world, which is a negative aspect and totally against the oversoul. So we have to play by its rules, but in playing by its rules, we have great power. Remember, as co-creators, create the fiction, move toward it, and the fiction will become fact. One, if things are best left in the past, then move forward and leave it in the past. Because anything accepted as true today will be imprinted upon your reality as true tomorrow as well. You got to break that cycle. The chains of precedence can only be broken by you. Only be broken by you. But once you have separated yourself from the conditions of the past, there's nothing stopping you. Just because you can't see how you can afford that house doesn't mean the simulacrum can't make that happen. Yeah, Archaix would have never taken off the ground the way we have, with so many. We have a lot of things going on now. We have a lot of help too, but it would have never if I would have just been chained to the past, because I've got a dark past, and most people with my past have never moved forward in life. They can't. They just can't break free. Yeah, so money is one of those intangible things that really don't take on substance in this reality. It's simply a non-issue. Because when you imagine conditions for what you want, then whatever money is required to make that happen is naturally going to come. If you focus on the money itself, that's negative, because there's no mental picture here of what you're actually trying to accomplish. Imagining having more money would actually be antithetical to the acquiring of more money, because when you try to imagine stacks of money and gold and wealth and all these things, but it's not attached to concepts and experiences, then what you have here is a situation of an immortal being attaching significance to something that is abstract and investing this emotion, and this emotion is nothing but an admission that you don't have it. So the simulacrum automatically assumes as true that, man, you put a lot of emotion into having these stacks of money and all this gold, but what I tell you guys all the time, the prayer of desperation admits a situation for what it is and thus continues it. It's the same concept. There is no changes whatsoever. So you don't imagine having more money. You don't imagine winning the lottery. No, you imagine living a life of luxury. You imagine that Lamborghini. You imagine that infinity pool. You imagine giving all your friends and family all these extravagant gifts. You imagine that mansion on the hill. That's what you imagine, because in doing all that, the money is ancillary. Always is. You got to flip the polarity on your personality concerning this whole phenomenon that you're experiencing. You need to regard this as an opportunity. You need to be thankful that you got fired from a job that was not going to take you to your full potential. You need to envision being offered a job and actually working in it in something that you want to do. You need to be thankful for this free time to go ahead and clean your house and do exactly what you need to do in life to be the very person that you want to be. You need to admit that the job that you had was insufficient, and even if it paid the bills, it still wasn't bringing you the satisfaction that you really wanted in life. You need to turn this negative into a positive. And if you do that and you feel gratitude, and with that gratitude, you paint a mental picture that this was a necessary stepping stone to getting the work that I really want to do, that pays way better, doing something I'm going to have fun doing, and I'm going to be able to excel. And if you regard this situation with that attitude, I promise you the simulacrum will reciprocate, because it's a neutral field and it doesn't give a damn what your feelings are. It doesn't care if you're sad. It doesn't care if you're happy. It cares about what you project into it as a co-creator. It cares if you trust it. If you don't trust it, I promise you, it will show you that it doesn't care. And you will, if you're not broadcasting the life that you want to live on a daily basis, I promise you, you're going to live in the lives of others and you're going to be miserable. I have always promoted the idea. I'm going to give you an example too. I have always promoted the idea that we are so powerful that we not only build the worlds for ourselves, but even for others. I've always promoted it. I've mentioned this in many videos in the past, and I believe that because I've lived it. I haven't just increased my holdings. I haven't just increased my life and the level of my life, but I've also brought into contact with me people that have the same ideals, people who have the same goals, people who want to help, want to be a part of my life. I attract people to me that are vibrating on the same frequency as me. We have the same understanding. We're on the same spiritual level. We may not have the same intellect, and we may even, like Matt and I, we disagree on some topics. But they're so inconsequential to the grand scheme of things. It doesn't even matter. So yes, I am absolutely convinced that we can help build in this construct conditions that other people can experience. I believe, remember, I've given the illustration in the past that Jesus corrected everybody that he supposedly healed. And I've brought to you guys' attention all those Bible verses in the New Testament where Jesus rebuked people for praising him for healing them. And in almost every instance, Jesus said, no, by your faith you were healed, or by your word you were healed. These people had so much trust that Jesus was who he said he was and able to do the things that they heard he could do, that all they did was touch him and they were healed. So, but this was the relationship factor. Jesus admitted, I ain't heal anybody. He said this. It's in the New Testament. The same thing applies to Meryl. Meryl can envision a friend, an acquaintance, a family member that needs something in their life and has an inability to bring it into their life by themselves. Meryl's relationship with the Oversoul can bring that into existence for that friend, because the Oversoul is infectious. It likes to be shared. It doesn't matter if somebody else is introducing, one soul is introducing another soul to the Oversoul. This is Meryl's reality tunnel. And in Meryl's reality tunnel, she knows that she trusts the Oversoul so much that she can actually help another individual. That help may be temporary. It may be for the rest of that individual's life. But absolutely, we can affect the worlds of others by having trust in our own relationship with the Oversoul. It's honored. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. I do believe that individuals have invoked healing in other people. Not just physical healing, but even psychological, emotional healing, trauma. They've affected in other people. I mean, there are several people in social media platforms that pass themselves off as empaths with the ability to heal other people. And I believe some of these people are genuine. Yeah, their track records are very good. So they're not just charlatans making claims, throwing out decks of cards and all that. These people actually have the gift. But it's a relationship. They understand. They're not the ones doing it. They understand who's doing it. They just have to play their part. So yeah, I'm gonna have to answer yes to that. But grief and loss it's evidence. If you're the one experiencing grief and loss, it's absolute evidence that you're a spiritual being. You're 100% a spiritual being. These emotions are not from this world. Grief and loss is something that it heals over time. You already know this. You didn't need me to tell you that. We already know grief and loss heals, but you can also accelerate that healing with positivity. And I don't mean an artificial positivity where you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I feel great and all that, even if you don't. I'm talking about it's the exact same thing I'm telling other people. Pick a day. It doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks from now or if it's 2 years from now. Pick a day in the future, because the future hasn't happened yet. But in your mind, you can build it, because the future is a X factor. It is an unknown. It is a completely unknown neutral field for which you can imprint anything you want to on. 2 weeks from now, Boopster's happy. 2 weeks from now, Boopster doesn't feel grief anymore. Two weeks from now, everybody in the family has moved on. They have nothing but pleasant thoughts about the one who is deceased or hurt or whatever. You can build that, and you can accelerate the healing and all that. But these are basically a spiritual phenomenon for which we don't have a lot of answers for here inside the construct. Like I tell you, the three main spiritual qualities are intuition, imagination, and empathy. Well, you're talking about empathy here when you talk about grief and sorrow and all that. So it's entirely spiritual, and it's basically for the betterment of the immortal soul. You're meant to feel these things. You're meant to. If you didn't, there would be something fundamentally wrong with you. Let me tell you something. You've fallen so far that anything that happens to you in life is beneficial now. You can only look up. And just like I told the other guy, this is the time when you have to completely reverse your polarity. Because when so many negatives have hit you so fast, then you have an absolute clean slate for the future. There's nothing chaining you to the past. There are no conditions that you're suffering right now that are the result of things keeping you in those conditions from the past. You're able to break free. Who cares if you don't have $1 in your pocket? Who cares? You need to regard this as an opportunity. Remember, from the perspective of the simulacrum, every single moment is pregnant with possibility. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard when you're going through these things, but you've got to change your vibration, and you can do it. You can do it. All you have to do is envision a wallet full of money. Envision a vehicle that you're driving that you own. Envision all these things. It doesn't even matter. If you think for a second that you have to come up by virtue of imagination with the solutions, that means you don't have any trust in the oversoul. And it means that you're going to be telling yourself the truth. Because if you have to think of what the solutions are, you're never going to reach a solution. You have to totally give it over to the oversoul. Know what you want, move in that direction, even when you don't have it. And it will begin knitting the necessary conditions and circumstances in your life, and things will start coming to pass rapidly. I promise you, you're not going to starve. I promise you, you're not going to be living on the streets and just die. Listen, this is a wake-up call. This is a time in your life, and I've been there. You're speaking to somebody who slept under bridges, lived in a tent in a forest. You're talking to somebody who was a runaway at 15 years old, all the way till I was 17 years old. I slept wherever I could. I said, and even since I've been out of prison in my 40s, I was homeless. You're not talking to somebody who doesn't know the situation that you're in. And I'm telling you, attitude changes our whole reality. Even when we don't have anything to be thankful for, if we are, strange things happen. That meals come to you from out of nowhere. Listen, right now, even as a contractor, I go everywhere. I got money in the bank. I got some money in my wallet. And these events don't happen in my life anymore. But when I was homeless, when I didn't have any money, I can't even remember all the times people just reached out to me. And I don't even know how the hell they knew I was homeless, because I was still well dressed. I just didn't act homeless. Wasn't dirty. Man, the simulacrum takes care of its own, and it will continue to do that. But I always had this idea that I'm going to be all right. And just having the idea that you're going to be all right will create the situations on a daily basis where you will be all right. But if you want more than just all right, it's easy to do. You got to be thankful for having nothing, because that's a fiction. And as long as you're promoting a fiction and moving toward that, that fiction will become a fact. And what I'm talking about is the thankfulness. You're going to have a reason to really be thankful in the future when in the present you have nothing to be thankful for. These are patterns you are impressing upon the mold of the architecture of the future. And you can do this. This is the perfect time in your life to do this when you have nothing, because you're going to see the greatest exponential amount of changes in your life when you adopt this attitude. You have to adopt the attitude that in the near future, you're going to have more opportunities and more things to be thankful for than you could possibly believe. And when you develop that attitude and you feel grateful right now in the present, when you don't have any of these things, it will instantly induce the simulacrum to strike a balance, because it's an imbalance. And the imbalance is here's a soul that's very happy for having all these things, but it doesn't have all these things. So the simulacrum brings them into contact with you. You never know. It could be one single individual mad as hell because they're 78 years old and they know they're about to die, and they've come to peace with it, and they've got 18 to 30 family members, and every single one of those family members is a POS, and he doesn't like a single one of them, and you can be the guy who gets his entire estate because you sat next to him when you were broke on your ass and shared a cup of coffee with him. You never know what's going to happen. The simulacrum has always knit circumstances that are unbelievable when they're happening, and people just can't believe their whole lives change trajectory in an instant. Happens to people all the time. We hear these stories all the time. So you need to put yourself into the position of somebody who is going to receive a change in your reality like this. Because the very act of being open to the idea of miracles ensures that the simulacrum can introduce miracles into your life. You did a good job providing all the details, but it's the details that are not necessary. The situation is you want to change something for somebody else, and I'm telling you, absolutely you can. You can build that future for that individual as long as you're a participant with it. It's a part of your reality tunnel as well. You're sharing an existence with another individual. It's like a crutch. So I get it. This person has a lot of problems. I get it. They were abused. I get it. They're medicated. I get it. They got all these issues, but some of them could be psychosomatic. Some of them are legitimate. They're acting out. They have emotional instabilities. I get all that. But what I'm trying to impress upon you right now is that none of that matters. None of that matters. Because whatever is causing this individual this much pain can be taken from that individual in an instant, and they can change. If you're open to the possibility that this can happen, then you knit that into your reality as a possibility that that can happen. And it makes it more probable that something is going to happen that would cure this individual of this pain. So this, the particulars aren't really necessary, but you need to envision a future where this person is living a normal, healthy life. And when you envision a future that shows that this person is living a normal life, you need to put yourself in it somewhere. This person is interacting with you. You need to throw in details like geography and conditions and experiences, and you need to paint this mental picture. And then right now, today, before you go to sleep tonight, you need to start moving in that direction. What can you do today that would support the vision that you have of this person 3 months from now? What could you do today? When you wake up in the morning, that needs to be on your mind. Because it needs to be on your mind because you're already decided this person is going to be healed. So that decision is between you and the oversoul, not between you and that individual. It's between you and the oversoul. The oversoul doesn't care about right or wrong, truth and error, none of that stuff. It doesn't care about pain, joy, none of that. It's a neutral field. It will always reflect back as circumstances, the very things that are projected into it. If you project an image of this person being healed and enjoying life, then you need to also project that you're in that image somewhere with this individual. Maybe in a distance or whatever. You need to paint that with as much geographical features and all the conditions, work, whatever. And you need to start doing things on a daily basis that will support that projection. You need to envision yourself in that future, looking back at the past when things were so terrible you can't believe how good they are now. And once you have done that right there, if you truly believe the projections that you emanate, then you trust the oversoul to take care of the details. The problem most individuals have is that they think they have to provide the answers. That's the oversoul's job. You just have to build the picture. The oversoul, the simulacrum will reciprocate. So basically what I'm reinforcing here is what I'm telling everybody else. And what I'm telling you specifically is that quit thinking about the details. All you do is provide them more energy. Omit the details. Build the future you want for this person to experience, because that, doing something for someone else and not for yourself, that's love, and the simulacrum will reciprocate. I feel stuck and don't know where to start because I can't find some direction in my life. I took your exact words and I just did the inverse. You have just admitted to me in this question exactly why you're having a problem. If you don't know what kind of future you want to experience, neither does the simulacrum. If you can't paint a mental picture with some type of emotional backing as to what your goals are, what are the things that you really strive for in life, what you want to be, neither can the simulacrum know that. The individualized soul is so powerful that we write our own destiny. And then we blame God that we don't experience anything that we would think we would really like to experience. But the truth is, we never knit that into our experiences by trust, by imagination, by intuition. You have to envision a future that you want to experience before you'll ever get to experience it. Right now, your day-to-day, boring, mundane life is simply because in the past you've been stuck in a cycle of boring, repetitive, mundane days. If you want to experience excitement, you need to envision a life that's full of experiences that will make you excited. If you want to experience a life full of passion, you need to envision experiences of you participating in acts that are very passionate. Guys, we see evidence of this every day. Every day, all around us. We see those individuals in our communities that seem to have all the luck in the world. We see those individuals that seem to attract every negative situation in the world. We see those homes in our local areas that seem to get burglarized more than any other home. We see all the phenomena around us of these repetitive patterns unfolding, and we call them coincidence. We see all this, not realizing what's really happening. Once you accept something to be true, it becomes true for you. If you accept the fact that you're boring and you have nothing to provide of value to someone else, the simulacrum will respect that. It will 100% respect that and knit that back as circumstances, because those are powerful emotions. That destitution, that anger, that sadness, that frustration, that anxiety, those are energies. And the simulacrum uses those to project back the very mental image of yourself into tomorrow. We do this every day. This entire concept that I'm bringing to your attention right now is something that every single one of you listen to me do every single day. All I'm trying to do is tell you to use the exact same formula that builds tomorrow based off your beliefs of today and the present, is to use it to your advantage and build something better, build something greater. Right now, Jason is experiencing everything today that I pretty much expected I was going to experience yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. But sometimes I go out and I break pattern and I experience new things because I'm open to the possibility of new experiences. So when I decide to do something very different and I meet somebody very intriguing, something very interesting, and I'm on spiritual fire all over again because I broke pattern and I was rewarded for it. Yeah, we all do this. We all do this all the time. So my message to you is that if you don't like your life as it is right now, then you simply imagine a life that is fundamentally different, a life that you want to live. Because if you're not giving a stable mental image of who you want to be, you can't blame the simulacrum for not creating a concrete reality for you to experience. If you send mixed signals, you will have mixed circumstances. Okay, the first thing you can do is never ever admit. I understand you did it for the purposes of this video. Never again admit to another soul that you're having conflicts with other souls, that you're having conflicts with people. Don't even let it enter your vocabulary. From this point on, you need to recognize that there's a break in precedence. You need to recognize that this is the point in your life when you start moving forward and you're not having these problems with individuals. You need to admit these problems with other individuals no longer exist. And you need to envision a future, even 2 days from now, 2 weeks from now. You need to envision a future where what you just admitted to me is a fiction. You need to be in the future, looking back at the past. Absolutely unbelievable how your life has fundamentally changed just because you wanted it to. You've already admitted what the problem was. Now you have to act like the problem no longer exists. Move forward in the direction of who you want to be and not who you were. And do not attribute blame to other individuals for coming into contact with you. You don't need that right there is just a dissipation of energy. You don't want to do that. You could have been the cause. If it's a whole bunch of individuals that conflict with you on all kinds of things, then there was something wrong with your energy, or you're hanging around the wrong people, or you're emanating an energy that attracts everybody who wants to conflict with people. So you need to move forward, completely forget that you ever admitted this to another soul, act like it never happened, and that the situation is not something that you suffer, and envision a future where this is no longer a reality. And you move forward. It's that simple. I used to procrastinate a lot, so I get it. I get it. I do get it. The fear deal. I have so many videos about fear. It's I'm trying to answer best for you. How do you stop fear and procrastination? I think the first thing I would do in your shoes is to completely throw out the idea that fear is something that you need to stop. You need to completely discard the concept that fear is something that is attached to you. Fear is the opposite of trust. There's a problem here. So you ask the right question, but are you ready to move forward without fear? Because confidence is the opposite of fear, and confidence possesses powers of its own. Confidence is the language of the oversoul. Fear is the language of the construct. You're not communicating in the right language right now. But then again, you being in this live chat, when this particular video is aired and you're participating in this chat right now, that tells me that something's looking out for you and wanted you to participate and wanted you to hear this. But for some reason, you're stuck You're stuck speaking the wrong language. The multiverse will never respond to anyone who is broadcasting fear in any other way than producing a reality that is full of fearful things. You got to break free from that. So like I said, every single moment is pregnant with possibility. That's how the simulacrum sees us, because it's a neutral field. It is always waiting for an upload. It's waiting for you to build something in your mind. It's waiting to observe you, move in the direction that you want, so it can start knitting these circumstances to bring these things into your life that you want. But if you're feeling fear, you're not creating. If you're procrastinating, you're stagnant. These are the two things that will stop you from ever receiving anything in this life that an immortal soul is actually here to do. You're here to learn, you're here to grow, and you're even here to enjoy yourself. You're here to basically, life is all about living. And in this construct, you're here to mature, but that doesn't mean you're not here to have fun as well. If you're immersed in fear, then you need to vibrate on another frequency. It's as simple as that. I don't even need to address procrastination because it's attached to fear. So fear is the real problem. You need to imagine a life where there's nothing to fear anymore. You need to imagine a life where you look back into the past and realize, I can't believe that I was ever scared. You need to understand that there is freedom in trust. Once you trust the oversoul, you'll realize there is nothing to fear. But no one can cross that bridge for you. They can change conditions in your life, yes. That's like a contract between that individual and the oversoul as pertaining to you. But as far as the phenomenon of fear, you have to do that yourself. And the best way to do that is in baby steps. Trust the oversoul to do one little small thing at a time. And as you see these things develop in your life, you will gain more and more trust. And the opposite of trust is fear. So the more you trust the oversoul, the more fear will lose hold of you, until you wake up one morning absolutely free, and you'll realize that it was all illusory and you did it to yourself from the beginning. If you're vibrating on the frequency of creativity, on the frequency of appreciation for the things that you have in life, if you're vibrating on the frequency of sharing, doing all kinds of positive attributes, these don't manifest in your life. These don't have a room in your life. You're not on that frequency. What you're describing to me is base frequencies. If you're doing what I'm describing, those can't happen. So you need to figure out where these are coming from. And if you don't want to do a deep dive and a deep search, then that's okay too, because we are not limited by precedent. If there is pain in your past, you can sever that contagion right now. It's willful. As soon as you decide, you know what, man, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I'm tired of being held back. I am tired of coming up with excuses why this didn't happen. I can't do this, why this person doesn't like me anymore. I'm just tired. I don't like the person that I have become. I'm fed up. Once you've finally done that, once you've met that threshold, man, believe me, man, the oversoul is listening, because that's exactly where it wants you. That's what this whole life is about. People get sent into the darkest pits of reality so they can wake up. And the greatest success stories we ever hear are those who fell the farthest. We hear these stories all the time. What you're describing to me is a soul that's getting fed up. And that's what this anger, it just comes on you, this aggression, it comes in. Listen, what it is a soul that wants to feel other things. But those situations aren't occurring in the life of that soul. So other emotions come to the surface. This is what you're describing to me. And it can be changed in an instant. The best time to make a change like that is before you go to sleep, and just finally just go ahead and tell the oversoul straight up, hey man, I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm gonna wake up in the morning a totally new man. Tomorrow I got new experiences. Tomorrow I'm gonna keep a positive attitude, because I see myself 6 months from now being so different that nobody in my present life will be able to understand how I made such a fundamental change in just 180 days. Adopt that attitude. Once you've adopted that attitude, the simulacrum itself is going to automatically assume that there's a reason why you've adopted that attitude. It's a neutral field. Remember, it does not care about right or wrong, true or false. None of that. As a neutral field, all it does is build for you in the physical what you imagined, a fiction, to be true. This is the formula. The belief that you deserve something is the greatest impediment to receiving it, because most people are conditioned to believe that they don't deserve anything, or they don't deserve a better life, and they don't deserve. That mindset is dungeon programming. That mindset absolutely prevents you from understanding what's really happening when we build our world. What's really happening is that we, as a highly individualized soul, are drawing from ourselves more than we contain. When that concept enters your comprehension, when you truly fathom how dynamic it is for an individual soul to draw from themselves more than they possess, then you're going to understand where that power is really coming from. And when you comprehend where this power really comes from, and that you're a conduit, there's not going to be anything you cannot experience or cannot do. Because if you understand what I'm talking about, you'll have all the trust in the world and the oversoul to bring to pass whatever you mentally possess. It's as simple as that.
Someone told me once that there are no victims. Do you think that's true?
No, I'm not, that's not my opinion. That's not my opinion at all. And the reason it's not my opinion is because there's two phases to our reality. And I'm very specific about this in past presentations. There are two phases to our reality. And one of them you understand is the collective, and the other one is the highly individualized personal experience. Now, with the highly individualized personal experience, we are all forging our own reality tunnels, but often we phase out of that creativity and we phase into the collective where we're living in the lives of others. When we're not consciously creating circumstances, we are living 100% a reactive life. We're not building, we're experiencing. We're not moving forward, we're in stasis. It takes years of the development of an avatar right here in this construct to actually be responsible for its actions. It's called maturity. So it takes a while for that to happen. Until that point is breached, we're moving to and fro. We're popping in and out of other people's reality tunnels. We're experiencing. This is why our youth, every one of us, this is why our youth is so filled with all different types of experiences. And as we get older, we've basically concreted our lifestyles into reality tunnels that seldomly change. And we're moving in one direction. So no, I don't believe that, I don't believe there are no victims. There are victims, but I believe that the oversoul turns victimhood into victors. And I believe that this is the situation that we're in, that we're all victims of something. Some are more victims than others, but the power of the immortal spirit is to overcome anything that we have ever suffered in this avatar. That's how powerful the Godhead is. Anything you create as a law unto yourself becomes a law unto yourself. I don't believe there's an actual formula that you're looking for here that truly exists for all. I believe that I have created circumstances in my life purely by wishing them to be, but I never said it out loud. I never prayed. I never said anything. All I did was very quietly in my mind wish something to happen, and then I acted as if that's already going to happen, and it did. So I also believe that some people require that personal element where they get on their knees and they fold their hands and they lean over their bed and they pray to God and they ask God, hey man, I need this, and that. Thank you for all this. And if that's what you need, that's okay. If there's a crutch that's required, I would never denigrate you for that. I understand. We live in a physical world, so it's very hard to understand the bridges that are necessary from the spirit world by virtue of imagination to create circumstances into our physical aspect. I get that. So whatever you need to do whatever you need to do, then that's what you should do. There's no formula. We create that. That's the beauty of a co-creator. We build our own formulas and systems, but there's still fundamentals that we have to recognize here. And one of those fundamentals is trust. Because if you don't have any trust, then that means you are going to attempt to figure out how things need to be done. And as soon as you get trapped in that feedback loop, you'll never get what you want, because for the rest of your life, you'll be trying to figure out how it can come to pass. That lack of trust is absorbed into the simulacrum as a fact, and it gives you reasons not to trust it, such as not bringing to pass the very thing that you want, which reinforces not trusting it. Again, you have created a feedback loop. But I'm going to address that right now, guys. Listen, the trolls do not bother me. I'm going to tell you, anybody can verify this. I'm not making anything up, and I don't need to. Listen, in my world and in my reality, he says, I know that I am armored. I know that the Oversoul has protected me. And I have a lot of people in several channels that have attacked me, but there's a common denominator that afflicts them all. And is that once they release videos attacking me, they lose subs and I gain them. And many of the people that have watched those videos were interested in what they were hearing. So they came to my channel and they became a valuable sub. And many of you now, having come from those channels, have interacted in the chat and you find value here. Listen, if you're living a truly immortal spiritual life, there is nothing that can come against you that you cannot cannibalize into energy that you can use for yourself. And in so doing, it takes away from the energy of your assailants. I have no problem with the trolls. I have even encouraged them in my past videos. Hey man, do what you want to do, whatever. Because the more individuals focus their negative energies toward me, I am vibrating at such a positive level that I absorb that energy and flip its polarity, and I use it for my own advantage, while basically they are draining themselves, wasting hours and weeks and months watching all my videos looking for anything to make fun of. At the same time, all of my detractors and all of my trolls and all their channels all put together don't even make up 50% of the amount of subs that I have. So I'm not worried about it. I understand what's happening, and I invite this war because it will do nothing but bring me more positive energy that I can use for my own advantage. So don't fight the trolls. All we do is block them here, and that enrages them even more to release more videos, which sends me more subs.